Welcome back to the Talking Dev, and in this video we are going to continue with our coursework. Here we are going to look into HTML forms. So welcome to the world of dynamic programming. Let me quickly show you what this dynamic programming will look like to you in future. Here we have an example of a login form. I'm so sure you've seen a login form. So we have this beautiful example I found somewhere online. This from Colorlib, and they have this login. You can see the username and the password here. We can see even the login button. Then we have all these other elements that relate to this form. And also I have some complex form here, and this is another form that you can use to relate with your content. So we have a few buttons here. We have number, we have more like checkboxes here. I suppose maybe radio button, like this can be checkboxes, and this one can be radio buttons because there are two options, and here we have like three options. And then we have other element, even using this sort of an address here. Perhaps they decided to use a text area. As you can see, I'm throwing around some jargon here: text area, button, checkbox, number. Well, I'm so sure you're wondering what are these. So let's quickly see what we are going to cover in this coursework, and then later dive into VS Code and start putting this into practicals. Here is the outline of this course. So we will begin with form, that is simply adding form. We follow through by adding form attributes like action, autocomplete, enclosure type, and we have the method there, and then we follow through by seeing input. Here we will see a little more of variation of different type of inputs, including number, email, password, range. We have date and file and time. So these are some of the type of inputs we look into. Then we will tie together inputs with label, because when it comes to accessibility and also adding description to our input or different type of tags that are found within a form, we usually tie together that one with label. And then we follow through with text area, where we see a little bit variation. Having seen input, we see how text area works. You've seen me mention about text area sometimes back there. And then we have select, and within select, that is those drop down you've seen on internet, and you've seen maybe an option. So we see how to add select with HTML forms. And then we look at checkboxes and radio buttons. So I've already shown an example that looks like a button. Ours will look a little bit different, but when you go into CSS and you start getting in depth into understanding CSS and working with CSS, you will be able to design your checkbox to look more like the one that I've shown you. And then at the final here, we look at field set and the legend, and there we have completed this chapter. So let's quickly go to VS Code. I've already started or initialized my project here with the forms. So here is the form file here, that is forms.html, and I've already added my title. I've already you can see or other. What I've done is I've quickly added these comments here so we can have reference. I don't want to go back and forth between my presentation here and back here. So I've added these comments so that we can have a quick reference, and I can quickly look into what we are going to do next. So let's quickly add form on our page so that you can see how we do. Form is easy. You add a form, that is the keyword, and as we know, we usually add opening and closing, and well, Emmet will do the rest of the work for us. And that's beautiful, and that's how we do form. And before I go into adding forms attribute, I want us to go into form gradually so that you can see how we add elements. So let's first add an input. So I'll quickly add an input, and I leave it as default. You can see VS Code is trying to give some suggestions here. So I will leave it at default, and the default type of an input is text. I will see what it is. Let me quickly save, and you see here on my side, I have this one. Let me zoom a little bit so you can see. So I am at 150%. So that is our form. But actually right now it has nothing. But what's the beauty about it, we can be able to add. Let's maybe imagine this is about a form about login, and they need my full name. So Mark Jaroge. So that's how you do it. Simple as that. But adding forms like this, you see, if you come across a website and you see a blank form like this one or something like that one, you really don't know what to do with it. So what we usually do, we add a label. And there is two ways of adding labels to a form, and this is the first way that we are seeing here, where we have a label and there we have a cursor blinking for us to asking us what label or what input are we going to associate this label with. Because I'm designing this form in the context of a login page, let's quickly add like name here, a name, and here for, let's call it full name. And how we associate that one with the input we are having here is by adding the ID, that is full name. See, look at the other side, we have the name and the ID. Let me show you something. When I click at name here, look at what happened to our input. Let me quickly redo again, and you see. So forms we usually use, sometimes you can navigate around through the form using tabs, and the best way you can change some tricks that we use with forms is adding name. In fact, you'll see when it comes to a project there, I'm going to use almost a similar trick that we are using here to create our navigation so that we can click back and forth our navigation. So we usually use something like a label and an input there, or for that project we'll be using checkboxes. You'll see how we do it, but for this one I wanted you to see how to do this one. But as I noted earlier, we have two ways. So this is the first way of adding a label. The second way is that you simply move this label here, and that you wrap your input with a label. So if you see these two variations, let me undo this one, that one, undo that one, and copy this one, and I want to, okay, let me not undo that. Let me add the second one. Yeah, if here we are talking a full name, let's have an email one. So, and show you that second variation. So here, what I will do, I quickly do that and add an input. So I'm introducing you to a second one, and second type of an input, and this is called email. So if you've seen those sort of forms that when you try to add something that's not image, it has more like it prevents you from adding anything else other than email. This is how we do it. So we have an input type called email, and here I will add that title. That is an email. So what I will do, I add this one, a breaking tag, and then I will add another one so that we can have, let's shift this form that there is a space in between. So we remember self-crossing tag. One of them is this one. So what it does, it breaks. So it breaks lines. So like this one, when a browser sees it, it says just break this line and also break another one so that we have more like this space and it's look a little better. So previous year I illustrated to you, if we click a name, it activates our input. Let's see whether this one activates. So this one does not activate, and you can see why. Actually, it's because I misspelled label here. It's supposed to be label, and it still activates that label even without the full name. So this is the difference. When we wrap our inputs or form elements with labels, we don't need to add for. But when input and label are two different elements, like this one, like these are different elements or different tags, or each standing all by themselves, we need to add this for, so that this for we can associate it with the ID. Now, the second step I'm going to add is that when we are submitting our forms, we need to describe them or to name them. So let's name this input here with a letter name. And I will show you why we are doing that. And then here we add name and we call it email. So actually, I did notice earlier, Emmet had added the word name here, which is really beautiful. Thanks to Emmet. And we don't need an ID, but we can simply call it also email. So you can see this is how we do it most of the time. Everything about that input we call name, like email, email, email. And when it comes to the label, you'll see full name, full name, full name. In fact, it's good to inspect. Always inspect a form that you've seen online. Let's quickly inspect this one and see whether I did follow that one. Yeah, so here we have type, text, ID, name, and name. You can see that one. And we also have a name that is label for name. So all these other one, they will have the same group. Just ignore this div. This one we'll see later. But I wanted to show you how most of the time when it comes to these forms, you find that when it comes to naming them, you name them like for that is the label you name with the same name that you use as the name of input and also as an ID. And remember, when you use things like ID, there can only be one ID of that name in the page. So that's how we add label and also inputs. Let's quickly go back to the form here and add some of the attributes. So the first attribute you're going to see here is called action. So action usually tell a form, I want you to submit this form to this URL. You remember the whole idea of dynamic? So this is where we will have something like a server here. And this is our client from this form here. Okay, let's just go back here and you see the form. This is a form, this is our client. And then we have a backend. And this backend usually will be like an API where we want to submit this form to, or to submit this data to, so that it can be processed and we store it to a database. So action tells the browser, I want you to submit this form to this API endpoint. And if you don't know about an API endpoint, think about it like another program that's running in the server that when we submit data, it will process it. So here we'll have that an action. And another thing that we want to add here is the method. And before we go to the action, let's simply say submit to a certain endpoint of API. Maybe our API may be this website /API /v1/login. This is something you see frequently, but I want you to ignore that one a little bit because this one touches another concept altogether. What's also important is this method that I've added here. And method usually tells the browser that whenever you are submitting this form, we want you to submit this form. Either you can encode them, and also this whatever we are adding here, we want either to go and change this data, maybe update it, or it's create new, or sometimes even you can say delete. Also, we can go and say just get information. We want to get information. An example of that is something like a search. But with this one, a form like a login form, usually it is for creating. So what I've just described, that is simple CRUD. Create, read, update, and read. And here we use a method like post. This is a common method that we use. So, and I will share with you what happens if you don't add post there. And let's say these are the two most important attributes that you can add to a form. We can also add the third one like autocomplete. This is something like this is a boolean, like you can say on or off. This is like it autocompletes. Maybe I don't know if you will know my email here. Well, it doesn't know, but this is something that you can add to forms. And the other one that I've mentioned here, that is the enclosure type. This is usually important when it comes to submitting files. This one I'll come to it when we be mentioning file. But as you can see, our form is almost ready. Now, there is something missing here. And one thing that this form is a button. We need to find a way to submit this form. And that's why I didn't show you how to submit this form earlier, because I wanted us to add something like a button. As you can see, we have different type of button. There is a button that will be disabled, there is reset, and there is this one for S, which is important when it comes to forms, because with forms, the type of a button needs to be submit, so that when we click it, the form already knows that we want to submit this one. So here we can add sign in. That's the beauty of it. And we are going to add this break. So we are going to break that one and add another one. So I hold Control D and to duplicate that one. Now let's see what happens when we click sign in. Oops. This says this page isn't working. This is because this endpoint here, that is our action, it's submitting to itself, it's not there. And we are using the method post, because the post expect whatever we are sending here, we are sending to the server. So, and that server, it's not there, and there is no way to illustrate how to do this one. But what we do, I'll change this guy to get. Good. Now we have get. Let's see, I don't know. Okay, I want you to see what we have in here, 05.forms.html. And then we click like that. Yeah, it submits to itself, but it submits to the same page. Let's try to submit to this page here. I don't know. Yeah, I think we change that guy there. And let's go back and see whether it will submit to this page. Yeah, it doesn't change anything. But I want you to see what we are having here. We are having question mark, full name equals, and email equals. You see this one? The name, and also input full name. This is what we are having. Now, this is what we call a GET request. And what happens, GET requests do not encode their data. Previously, I showed you when we were sending a POST request. Actually, it was telling us we cannot process this request. That's simply what it was saying. We cannot process this request because from the other endpoint, we don't have this endpoint. That was simple as that. Now, when it comes to this guy here, which is the GET request here, when it goes to the server, it exposes everything. And that's why when it comes to forms, we always want to use something like post. That is when it comes to signing forms, we always want to use a method called post. So that is simple way of adding a form, that is posting a form. We need a button, we need inputs, as we can see, and when we want to have our form to be accessible, we need to label them, because as you can see, like in my form here, we are labeling, and you already know here you put your name, you already know here you put your email, and then you put your message. With that, let's go to the next part, because we need to cover all the rest here. And the beauty about the rest is that the rest of the input is that the input is usually almost the same. So we have the same input there, and then you can add number. That is a number, and let's add a label here. And call it age, and call it your age, and then name, age, and ID, age. So let's see what that one does. Let's go back to this guy here. I don't know why it's not showing us. Okay, and here let's add a break here. Okay, let's add 3 so that we can have more spaces there. So here we have our edge. Can you see the difference here? Here we have text. This is a text type and this is a number type. So a number, we can add this one. I suppose we can add other things like mean. Let's add a mean of like 10 maybe, and a max of let's say no one can, we don't want people that are like more than 60 years old. Right? I think we can also add default. Okay, let's do like 10 and we see what happens. So this is what it does. Other type of input we've noted earlier here. I think we have number. Let's see password. This is password, and let's add a label for and password, and you can say your password there, and then ID, password, and name. Let's call it password. Good. That we are here. I hope you are following along. I'm trying to be concise as much as I can within the limited time that we are having here. But usually what password does is that it adds a password that is a hidden field. As you can see, we cannot see it for what it's behind here unless we want to convert this one with JavaScript to a text input like this one so that someone can see what they've typed. But that's how you do passwords. Let's add another one here. So this time I'll copy and paste it here. And this one that we are going to have is we have date, time, and password. I think you can see exactly what we are doing. Let's see date. And nowadays the date is more smart than it used to be because browser have added a picker, a date picker. So let's see what we have. Date, and here we have our date pickers here, and we can be able to pick a date. This is beautiful. Different browser implement this one differently, but the thing is, this is how you can add date. We can also do the same with time. Let's add for time. I'll use my cursor here and say time, and then here time. Here we have, and we can also pick the time you want something to happen. If you ever worked with WordPress or maybe any publishing platform, you've seen a place where you can add date, you can add time, and this is how you can do it. Another thing, the one that we have, and I will leave this one to you so you can go and experiment, because there are many form inputs. And once you understand that all you need when it comes to input is input, you have a label, you need to add type, ID, and sometimes you can go to an extent like this one where if it is a number, you put a minimum and max and value and default. Something that I want to note and quickly is that when it comes to things like form, sometimes you want to add a browser validation, and one of those browser validation is required, that one and that one. We make it that this field are required. So what happens is that when you try to submit this form, look, please fill out this one. Although this is not recommended, it's recommended that you do your own validation. Typically, you don't do validation like this, but you want to add that a little bit of flexibility and maybe put yourself in a better shoes when it comes to those people who want to misuse your application. So you add this kind of validation that is the required. This a little bit of front, we can say browser side, to fix that problem whereby somebody want to submit a form and the field are not filled with content. For instance, you need to add a name and you need to add an email, But also when it comes to things like email, there's more advanced way of filtering email and finding whether this email is a valid email. So this is just an example and an introduction to that side of dynamic programming. So one thing that I will throw in here is the file, because that is crazy important, and I will add here. Let's quickly add here, just below the time. Yeah, here. Let's add the file. For file, this is usually for when you want to upload a file. So this is how you can do it. And you've seen files can be complex or simple. You've seen those ones that even have a drop zone where they've added drop zones. So you can make it complex. And file, let's add file, ID file, and then name file. Let's quickly do that. As you can see, we have a field called file. You can say upload my profile, your profile pic, your profile pic. So choose file. So when you click that, it wants to take me to the desktop here, so that I can choose a file. Maybe I want to choose something there, and here we go. You choose a file and you start the upload process. But you remember the one we left here, enclosure type, that's enctype. This is why you cannot submit a file without this one. So by default, the enclosure type usually is this one, that is application/xww form URL encoded. I hope you can see this one. And then if you are going to submit like a file like the one we have, that your form has a file, you must submit that one, so that when you are submitting, your form can be encoded in the right way, and you can be able to transmit that network from that file from the client side to the server side. So that's something to note. A quick one that sometimes we usually add, and it's important to have that one, it's this form input. And this one I'm throwing in as a bonus because I did not list it in my outline. The input here is called hidden. We can say CSRF token, and then we can have the value here, and we call it like, this is my token. That's like, okay, that's a lot and it's gibberish. Typically, when you want to make sure that your forms are submitted from the same server, and you're trying to prevent people who want to hijack your forms, so we usually have CSRF token, sort of a hidden field. As you can see from the browser here, we don't have it. In fact, we don't even include a label to it, so there is nothing here. But when you want to you come and inspect it here. Let's quickly inspect it and see whether it's there. So this is the form here. You can see it is here, but there is nothing showing on the client side. So this is how you can protect your form. This is more like an advanced tip quickly, and maybe later on you can, when it comes to your career in programming, you'll see how this one will become handy. So with that, let's quickly go to form input. I think we are going to look at input label tag. Now let's look at text area, select and checkboxes, and see how to do that one. So let's quickly go here and add, let's add a paragraph here and call it checkbox. This is a bad idea, but I want to just you to see that you can add like a paragraph there. And maybe let's call even a H4. Although it's a very bad idea to do this, I will show you how to fix it. And I'm introducing this one intentional because we can see, I want you to see how to do it better. So let's add checkboxes here and radio buttons. I suppose we could have started with the text area because that one is easy. and we'll check on radio button. Let's do checkbox here. Actually text area. Okay, no, I didn't want that one. I just wanted text area without being a tag. and the browser is smart because it has added text area, and even when it sees things like this, it wants to jump in and add them. So if you've seen boxes like this, let me cross this one, boxes like this, where you can scale them up and down and all that, they are called text area. So maybe you want to add your message here. So let's add a label. Let's give it a label and call it your message. I call it message. Actually, it's supposed to be your message. And then your message there, and then you can rate this one and this one, multi-cursor message. So we have message there, name, message, ID, message. As you can see, text area is a unique type of a form because you don't need to add the type, because by itself is a type. So when this is what make a difference between an input and text area or other type of form element or tags that have unique names. You don't need to name their types, right? So here we have the text area and how simple you can do that on. Our message is coming to the side here. So let's force this message to be on top here with break. Yeah, we are really misusing this break here. This is not how we do it. We usually design with CSS, and we wrap with other structuring element so that we can have this element of the form element to sit on their own. So we have the text area here, which has your message. So if you click it, it activates it. But sometimes you may see some placeholder text there. So what we usually add is a placeholder there and say, hi there, you see, it has added that message, hi there, like a placeholder, and when someone starts typing there, hi there, it goes, because it's not part of a text. It's more like that is usually called like a placeholder, something to entice someone or to show someone how to add message. So this is the work of placeholder. Even things like password here, like name. Let's go back to this one, because this is the best time to show you the work of a name. Where are you? Okay, here we have name. We've also mentioned it to be required. Let's add a placeholder here and call it John Doe. I can spell John Doe, right? This was email. Oh, I'm sorry. And let's call it John Doe at example. John Doe at example dot email. Let's call .com. I think that's better. And then for placeholder here, text, we add that guy, John Doe. Now we've seen placeholder, we've seen required, we've seen type, ID, name, you even see the default value. And I kind of sort of doubt whether this is how we do it, but we look at that later together. One thing that I want you to know is that no one is perfect. You can't remember all these things often. You need to consult documentation from time to time. That's why we have documentation. You don't need to be perfect. This is something that I want to repeat over and over again. You don't need to be perfect to be the best programmer. Just know enough so that you can be able to move to the next level. Now, that one aside, I like to add some little bit of motivation there. This video is long. It actually surprised me because I didn't think that perhaps we can cover like 2 sections. I wanted to clamor together into a single section, but I realized, well, let's expand with that. This content is a little bit longer, and with forms can be can be challenging to understand, and I wanted to take my time to walk you through some of these basics. So what we have a second section, and it is here, that is here on my right. Actually, this is my right, this is my left, it is here on my right. So we click that video and go watch next, and we see you there. Take care and bye.